The new minister of evangelical church, just getting to know all the people, the congregation, he started out a sermon, the tried and true subjects, which involved heaven and hell. And, well, after his sermon, he would say to people in the church, figuring that they would all resonate to what he would say, every member of this church had better change their ways, or when you die, you're going to go to hell, not heaven. And just at that time, as the minister was wrapping that up, there was a man in the third row, and he smiled broadly. Now, remember, the minister didn't know this man, didn't know any of the people, really. So he decided to go with it again. He said, now, let me remind you again, every member of this church had better change their ways, or they're going to go to hell, not heaven. And that same man in the third row, even more, smiled wider as that warning came across from the minister. Well, this aggravated the minister a little bit, and he had to somehow talk to this man. So at the door, when they're shaking hands, he's smiling. He shook his hand. He said, wait a minute, I just said that every member of this church had better change their ways if they wish to go to heaven and not hell. Why are you smiling like that? And he said, well, because, Reverend, I'm not a member of this church. Every time I say that, I laugh at it too. This is truly a great day for me. It's a day we receive new members at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa. It's a special time for all of us, longtime members as well as those presently joining. Now, I titled the sermon, You Are Somebody. Now, that doesn't mean that anyone is better than anyone else. It means that you, as an individual, with your own thinking and your own process of choice, are deciding you want to make this church your home and to make yourself a member here, and for that we rejoice. It took me 50 years, maybe, to come to the conclusion that all of the stories that we know in the Bible are mostly apocryphal. That means the stories didn't happen in real time. But there are scores of references in Scripture that speak to everyone having different gifts and everyone able to contribute to the whole. And I am very grateful for. I think you're somebody because of what I know about you. And I must say that what I do know about you is good, very good. And I guess I'm the happiest when I'm celebrating the joy of new people in my life that help to improve who I am. One of my favorite scriptures comes from 1 Peter 2, 1-11. But you are the chosen race, the king's priests, the holy nation. You are your own people, chosen to proclaim the wonderful acts of humanity, who call you out of darkness into marvelous, marvelous light. At one time you were no people, and now you are chosen people. At one time you didn't know mercy, but now you know mercy. Now, how would I categorize describing the new members and even the people that I've been impressed with who have been here a long, long time? I call you the chariots of fire. That's what I call you. And on this special day, I ask everyone, longtime members and new members, do you know who you are? I know who I am, and I don't say that haughty. I don't say that as if I'm somebody. I know who I am. Now, I remember when I first came here and I met with the search committee. And I bet you they remember when they met with me, too. I told the committee, I said, I'm never going to ask people to join the church. First of all, it doesn't work. Second of all, the reason for that is manipulation when you ask people to join the church. Fresh meat, we call them. And we see prospects for our benefit to be part of us. Well, that's not evangelism, and it's not the work of the church. The only question to ask, and I think I have asked you that, In fact, one time I was in the back of a car with all my luggage and everything else, and just coincidentally, Eduardo called me. I said, Eduardo, is that you? And he said, yes. I said, what can I do for you to help you on your journey? And I believe you told me, you said, well, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that. I don't know if you remember that conversation, but I remember it. I love for people to join the church. I do. And I'm joining too. But evangelism in the truest sense of the word is not closing the deal to get new members. That's not what evangelism is. Evangelism is sharing a sound theology to a weary world desperately in need of some form of hope. I don't know what led you here. All I can do is rejoice that you're joining the church today. And I know what led me here. All I can do is rejoice. Joining today, there are times that I can believe that I'm serving in the church that I should have served years ago, decades ago. Why do people belong to this church? Because of one word, community. All churches, synagogues, temples, and other houses of worship have enormous power to effect change for good in the world. And we dare not lose sight of the vision to help the world to come closer to peace with justice. Maybe some of you know a theologian by the name of Howard Thurman, amazing liberation theologian, dean of the chapel at Boston University, where Dr. Martin Luther King attended. Now, he also happens to have been the very first African American to hold that position. He inspired people in the civil rights movement like Dr. King, and he attributes much of his own sense of dignity and vocation to his grandmother, who was a former slave. And she kept repeating to him over and over again, she told him, you are somebody. Now, I don't know what it's like to have been back there, been an African American back through the South in the 1940s and 50s. But there they were. Howard Thurman with his family, they stopped to rest at a park along the highway, and his daughters saw a swing set, and they wanted to take a little swing on the swings. But they were too young to read a sign that said, this is for whites only. Sadly, but patiently, Thurman told his daughters they couldn't play on the swings. And he tried to explain to them, but they were in tears. This was their first experience of racism. And so much as his grandmother had done when he was a child, he gathered his children in warm embrace and said to them, listen, you little girls are somebody. In fact, you're so important, so powerful that it takes the governor and the lieutenant governor and the entire whole state police force to keep you girls off of that swing set. You are somebody. You are somebody. And it's a shame when a person believes that their life doesn't count. We see it all the time. The teenager who feels that he just doesn't fit in. The adult loner who keeps sabotaging their relationships time after time and time again. The older person who wonders if it wouldn't be better for everyone if they just went ahead and just died. Yeah, there are many, many people in this world who don't think their lives matter in the grand scheme of things. And it's sad. It's saddest of all. And some of those people are sitting in the sanctuary today. Do you remember the London Blitz back in history in the 40s? Well, they had to huddle and go underground. And when all clear sounded, people would go out and survey the damage. And one night there was this heavy bombing, and there was a Bobby, British version of a policeman, went to the surface. And all he could see was the ruins, the smoldering ruins. And as he was, suddenly he heard the voice of a child. And he turned around and looked around at some of the debris, and there was an 8-year-old boy sitting, sobbing, next to a building that was a building. Somehow the child had gotten lost. He tried to get to the air raid shelter, but He didn't make it. But he managed to survive by staying on the surface. That was a miracle. So the London Bobby went to the little boy and said, "Where do you live, son? Where's your home?" And the little boy pointed to a street where there was nothing left but rubble. There's nothing left there. That's where he belonged. "Where's your parents? Where's your mother and father?" And he said, "My father's in the Navy, and he's overseas. My mother was killed 2 nights ago." Well, that pushed the officer back and said, "Well, what about the rest of your family? How about your uncles and your aunts and your brothers and your sisters?" And he said, "They're all gone. They've all been killed." Well, at that point, the policeman knelt down with eye level with the boy, and he said, "Tell me, son, tell me, who are you?" And the little boy began to cry even more. And he said through his tears, "Mister, I'm nothing. I'm nobody's nothing. I'm nobody's nothing." Well, that London Bobby remembered that. The poignancy of that sight, a little boy sitting in the midst of chaos, feeling that he was unconnected, he was unimportant to anybody else in the world. And to be quite candid, I believe that condition is a denial of one of the constituent needs of our human nature. We need to be loved, don't we? We need to be cared for. I know I do. I tell you all that every time I come in contact with you. Remember, I say, "Are you glad to see me?" And people say, "Yeah." We need to know that what happens to us makes a difference to somebody else. We need to know that. And there's no denying there are people in the world today who feel that way about their lives, unconnected, unimportant to anybody else in all the world. Unbelievably, some of these people have had parents who cared for them, a spouse who adored them, children who looked up to them. But somehow something happened in their lives that has convinced them that they are unworthy, they are unloved, and they're unfit to dwell in society. That's the saddest part. A teacher hands a child his grade. They took a test. He hands the kid the paper. It's an F. And he thought he did better than that. But he had a big fat F with a big circle around it. So that boy went home, and he went up to the attic, and he drew a big circle in the attic floor, and he drew a big letter F. And he just couldn't do well in school, and that was confirmation that he couldn't do as well as anybody else. And then this elementary school student did something very tragic. He hung himself over the F. Yeah, big F for failure. That's how he viewed himself. Now, I wonder how many of us view ourselves just as a big F. Losers, misfits, failures. Doesn't the world do that to you? Well, don't let it do that to you. That's a lie. Something I've been reading about, maybe you have too, road rage. You ever hear about road rage? It explodes at the spur of the moment, and it's getting worse. And for one brief moment, somebody cuts you off while you're driving, and you go into a rage. Maybe somebody you've driven with goes into a rage, and they're driving along, and they cut them off. Hey! Right? And then some real nasty curse words. And most of the times, cooler heads prevail. Nothing really bad happens. But then sometimes some things do happen. Somebody pulls out a gun and kills the other person. No rhyme or reason to it. That's road rage. You might say that's insane. Yes, that's very much insane. It's just like that woman who was a racist, who shot right through her door and killed a black mother of 4 because of some dispute they had. Now, what would cause somebody to shoot through a door to kill somebody, as she has done, ruining their lives, ruining her life, ruining everybody's lives that are closely connected? I don't know. But here we see physically fighting people in the middle of the road. Have you ever seen that? where they start punching each other. One man had a very expensive car. Another man had a pretty average car. And the man with the really fancy car says, "You're a nobody." You ever have anybody tell you that? You're a nobody. Well, the attendant didn't take it lying down. He brought that man to court. And the court sided with him. And they fined that man guilty of slander and fined that rich man $300 and $500 court costs. Well, these days we're seeing a lot of frivolous lawsuits where people are very quick to sue over trivial matters. Now, what a great service it would be for all of humanity if a person who made someone else feel small, insignificant, unworthy could be held accountable for their words or actions. I don't know. I just don't know. Now, one of the things that we're discovering is the harsh communication between people. I do agree with you. I do agree with you that things are not the way they used to be. We don't value each other the way we used to. I thought it's pretty bizarre. A lot of these things over the top. But I must say, this does prove one thing about what's happening in our time, in real time. It happens in our world. If you don't think these things happen, then you are naive. Many people have been beaten down in the world. And Henry Nouwen, a great respected writer who wrote The Wounded Healer, said, "The world tells you many lies about who you are. And you simply have to be realistic enough to know yourself about these things. Every time you feel hurt, every time you feel offended, every time you feel rejected, you have to dare to say to yourself, these feelings, strong as they may be, are not telling the truth about you. The truth, even though you can't feel it right now, is that you are somebody. You are. And nobody can take that away from you." I remember when I was at the lowest point of my life. I believe it was when my mother had died. And I ambled into the Salvation Army. It was winter. It was cold. And they sold me a coat for $3. And when I wore that coat, I was somebody. And I was going to be warm. I don't know why that was the thing that triggered it for me, that said I am somebody. But nobody can take that from you. You offer hope in the midst of despair. You offer triumph in the midst of tragedy. You offer conquest in the midst of catastrophe. I'm joining the church today, too. And maybe I should have joined years and years ago. Now, I hope you can get to know me, because I'm a Unitarian Universalist today, and I joined my community here in Tampa, who I feel honored to be among the chariots of fire. What do we offer? What do we offer in the church membership that differs from others, other churches, other houses of worship? What do we offer? We offer specifics and not smiles, performance and not promises. It's my choice alone to join. It's my honor to be moving on with my community to a higher ground. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't choose your relatives"? I think I've even uttered that many times. Well, I believe you can choose your family. I do. And today, my faith family is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa. All these years, I've been hustling for myself. All these years, I've been shallow, thinking only of me. Then something happened to me. I met a group of people who I thought as much or more of me than they thought of themselves. This I can only call the human spirit. I looked at my community with fresh eyes, and I began to see the names of people matching their faces. I began to listen to my brothers and my sisters. Oh, I knew them by name. And now I know them by their stories. And you hear things, you hear things a lot if you just keep your ears and eyes open. Through the grapevine, you hear about a domestic abuse over in that house. And over here, you hear about great joy because they're having a birth. A new baby is being born. And further over there, there's a wedding that's going to happen in that house over there. And sadly, there was a death in this house over there that nobody knew about, but eventually it came out. Unitarian Universalists invest in their people, all people. Let's not forget the people that have kept this church together. Let's not forget those members who toughed it out, because you deserve a lot of credit, as well as the joy of the new people joining, the young people, the middle-aged people, they're all age people. They see their future intertwined in a network of mutuality in the lives of the people that they're sitting next to. And all of that gives us a witness. Unitarian Universalists would never condone a theology that excludes some people because of their behavior or because of their social, economic, political, or other status in society. And I've been impressed by that. I've been impressed by those people who felt on their own accord that they wanted this place here to be the church where they were members of. And when you discover that you're somebody, when you discover you are somebody, you then become committed to letting other people know that they're somebody too. Putting the name to a face tells them that they are part of our Unitarian Universalist extended family. And I see this happening all over, throughout the community. It's a meaning of family. For me, it is. It's not about manipulating people to sign on the dotted line and help the cause, so to speak. It's about letting the world know what has to be done and what really matters in this world. It's every one of us, old and young and male and female and rich and poor and black and white and Anglo and Latino. We're all part of the family of this precious life. What happens to one of us happens to all of us. I mean, you know what happened to Dr. Martin Luther King. They told him, his advisors said, don't go to Memphis for the garbage men. And he said, I have to go. They strongly advised him, don't go. And he said, we have to help the garbage men just like everybody else. They were trying to get better working conditions. They were trying to get better wages. And at the time, garbage men made a salary below the poverty line. A lot of them were receiving food stamps and welfare in addition to their salary. The city commissioners strongly advised the mayor, don't negotiate in good faith with those striking sanitation workers. They're not negotiating in good faith. They even said, we're going to arrest them, all those garbage men, if they strike, because it's against the law to strike as a government municipal worker. Well, on the striking line, the men wore just one sign, front and back. I am a man. That's all it said. I am a man. Well, you know the tragic story. Dr. King checked into room 306 with Ralph Abernathy. And it was the coloreds-only Lorraine Motel. That was all they could check into. Across the street was a black men's rooming house. And the FBI said James Earl Ray killed Dr. King with a high-powered rifle from the bathroom of the rooming house. Well, based on the evidence, you know I don't believe that he was the assassin. But that's another story. And after the funeral, the nation attended through television. It was unbelievable. Well, now the city commissioners were advising the mayor, get this over with as fast as you can. All eyes were on Memphis. And these city commissioners, riddled with racism, were about to be exposed. So the garbage men lost their strike. They went back to work. And despite all their efforts, they got nothing in terms of salary and working conditions. But even though they lost, these brave garbage men became the conscience of the nation when they wore those protesting signs, "I am a man." They were somebody, and they were entitled to receive a living wage with better working conditions. Well, Abraham Lincoln said something interesting: "A house divided cannot stand." Well, let me tell you something. If we don't see each other as equal or superior to ourselves, the house will have no reason to stand. So I suppose what I'm trying to say to you on this day, the new members, the co-new members, that you are a big reason that this united house called the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa is standing and will stand. You are somebody. And now you are part of this family, chosen not for privilege, but for responsibility. And to you and to even the people that are here the longest time, I sincerely thank you. Amen.